up or
I know. So good. I want to hear.
okay, awesome. Well, I think
Okay.
this is number seven. So welcome everybody to number seven of our little podcast here. Mom, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So we were just talking to Shane, right? About dads. And I had talked to my husband last night and I'm like, honey, I got to get you on the podcast. And he's like, no, I'm not doing it. So I'm going to recruit you. You and my husband can do that.
That's cool. Yeah.
So anyway, tell us what happened? Like what happened with your pregnancy? You have a normal, no, I shouldn't say, I don't know how to say things right way.
I'm
But
gonna say
you have a,
we always say too, like when you talk to medical like parents, it's hard to talk sometimes because you don't want to offend anybody. So
yeah,
like, what do you not say?
typically developing. You have a typically developing
Yeah,
2-year-old.
yeah. I was told that I couldn't have kids. I went great without pregnancy. Towards the end, I got cholestasis of the liver, so I ended up having her at 37 weeks or 36 weeks. When I had her, I was told I still could never have kids, and they said that if I ever got pregnant again, that I would have to have my baby by, 36, 37 weeks so she didn't get big. Um, because the way my pelvic bone was and stuff. So they were like, to have a baby naturally, blah, blah. Well, I had low iron, so I couldn't have a C-section. I have a fibroid, so I knew I couldn't have a C-section that way either because I could potentially die from that. So long story short, 10 months into my daughter being born, my husband said, "Oh, you look like you're pregnant." And I was like, no.
Oh no.
You know, it can't
You're a
happen.
brave man who's to say that though.
Well, I see her every day. I know her routines. I know, her inside and out and everything. So I just,
Yeah, and then I was like, well, that can't be true. Like I did IVF.
we tried for years.
Yeah, and
So you got pregnant just
Natural.
natural
Yeah.
with yeah. So she was like already a miracle there. And then so then I took the test and I said I was pregnant and I was like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? So I went and told him and he was like, I just knew it. I just knew it.
Meanwhile, we just got back from Nashville.
Yeah. So
living our best lives.
right.
yeah. And then so I was pregnant with Lucy. Everything was going great. I was very nervous and cautious because I noticed that there was a lack in prenatal care before. They couldn't get me in. They said that they usually don't see people till 18 weeks, which I thought was really crazy. That's a long time to go pregnant, like especially I was high risk before.
Yeah.
They finally got in and they were like, everything's going great. She was going so good. Everything was good, good, good. I think it was around like 32 weeks. She was measuring big and they were like, we don't change due dates. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's fine. But they're saying she's big. I had a lot of amniotic fluid, which I thought was not normal. It's supposed to be between a 5 and a 15, and it was a 28. And that's not apparently normal. That's a lot. And I was like, okay. So like things just kept going and they just kept, just saying like, oh, there's, basically not enough doctors, nurses. There's too many people to put everybody in. So like my prenatal care towards the end was like slacking, I guess, as well.
Where are you located really quick?
We're in Maryland.
In Maryland. Okay.
Yeah.
So just in the area, they just were saying there's just not enough appointments or they just didn't want to see you as often. They felt like it was going well or
Switch after 32 weeks. But they were like, we just lost some doctors. Like there's just too many people. Like we can't see you as often. I was like, okay, whatever. Just kind of like kept an eye on things myself. And then towards the end of my pregnancy, I was 36 weeks and I was supposed to be induced and then I wasn't induced. So I was like, okay. So we just waited. And then I had drop in fetal movement, which I was like, something's not right. I can feel her not moving as much. So I went to the emergency room a couple times that week just to be sent home. And then
which they claim that it was mainly because of the high fluid levels that she wasn't really
couldn't feel it.
the baby moving.
so but you had health worries for yourself, right, during your pregnancies.
And that's one of my big things is I'm always like advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
I've helped so many people along this journey just telling people to advocate for themselves because like you know your body. So like as many times as I went to the hospital or called the doctor's office, they're like, you're fine. But I'm like, I'm not fine.
Right.
You know?
It's hard though, right? It's hard to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, and it really is. And I told him like the last day before I went in, I said, I was crying. And I was crying because I felt like I was being a bother to go to the hospital. I felt like I wasn't being heard. I just felt drained. Like, you know, how much can you tell somebody that something is wrong until they listen?
Right, right.
So I ended up being induced finally. Somebody listened to me. And when I was induced, they, you know, basically
Everything was going
fine, and then it wasn't fine. So I was pushing for 2 hours, and then my uterus erupted, which nobody knew, which then caused lack of oxygen and blood flow to the baby.
Right.
And
still an undetermined amount of time
Yeah.
before they realized and got the emergency C-section called to get her out.
So my last thing was I heard the call come over the intercom and the code, and my bed was slapped to the ground. I hit every wall on the way to the emergency room, and I just kept telling everyone I was going to die. I was like, I know I'm going to die because I have low iron. I'm O negative. So it's really hard to get that kind of blood. I told them since the day I went in there
that were really adamant on making sure they were fully prepared.
I was like, if something goes wrong, I need O negative blood. Like, please have it on hand. It's really hard to get, da da da. So I'm rushing in there. I'm like, where's my husband? I'm going to die without him. So he had to witness a lot of things that most dads don't want to witness. Our daughter was born not breathing. I never got to see her. All I remember is looking at the nurse and telling her I was going to die, and that, where's my husband? And they finally let him come in, and I was like, I'm going to sleep. And that's the last thing I remember. So.
Well, that's really traumatic, all of that.
Yeah.
And it's recent. Your baby's so little still. So as far as what did they have to do for you? Did you end up having to get like a hysterectomy with your uterine rupture, or how did that?
Told that I was going to have a hysterectomy. They did remove him from the room, and the last thing that he knew is that he didn't know if either of us were going to survive because she wasn't breathing.
Yeah.
I was
going to sleep.
Yeah, I was going to sleep. So I found out like 2 days later, I think it was, that they just repaired my uterus, that I didn't have to have a hysterectomy.
They told me when she finally got into the recovery room after I sat in there by myself for like 3 hours, waiting for them to get done the procedure.
Yeah. So, yeah, I lost.
But they repaired, at the end of the day, they repaired her uterus.
Yeah. And I lost 3 ounces of, right? 3
liters.
3 liters of blood.
When you only have 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You're a fighter.
Yeah. So I woke up, it was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they took me to my postpartum room, and then I was like, where is my baby? Like, nobody say anything. And they were like, if you want to see her, you have to get up and walk to that wheelchair.
Or get off the bed.
Get off the bed and walk to the wheelchair. And I was like, okay. And like, I got up and walked to it. They didn't want me to.
Right. You were trying to like put an impediment.
But I was like, I want to see my baby. So I did it, and I went down there and I got to see her. It was very hard to see. She was on the cooling table. I told them I don't want to know anything. I don't want to talk about it at the moment. My main concern was her and me getting healthy. And I was like, I don't want to know anything. So about like what happened to me.
Yeah,
I concentrate on her. So
what ended up, so they resuscitated her, and then what has been like her journey? Was she in the NICU for a while?
So she was in the NICU for a month. The first 5 days of her life, she was fighting to be here. She was not supposed to make it.
So they were prepping us up until they said she wouldn't make it past day 4.
Yeah.
So pretty much they, prepped us to, put her to rest by day 4. Um, the cooling bed thing. So it actually it's a 72-hour procedure where they actually put her in hypothermia state. So it lowers her body temperature down to, they can't heal the brain, but they preserve it so the damage doesn't get any worse that's already done. So it's pretty much like freezing her body to make sure that her brain doesn't take any more damage than what's already done. So
and they can only do it for 72 hours.
And then
Like I that is something I hadn't ever heard of. That's
it's crazy.
And right now, HIE is the most leading death in infants, and a lot of people aren't talking about it.
so what can you explain what HIE is?
So we cannot say the word. It's
hypothermic
an
anemic something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Google HIE, like it's gonna say, like it's gonna have it. We can never say it, so every time somebody asks us, I'm like, we straight butcher this thing. Like,
Yeah.
I totally know. We we were looking at Millie last year. She started to get these little, I don't even know how to explain them, blood vessels in her eyes that looked like they were bursting.
Yeah.
And it has to do with a genetic disorder that I cannot tell you the name of. So when you're saying that, I was laughing. I'm like, I totally remember. Anyway, we kind of went down that path, and we thought for sure that it was that, but it wasn't. It ended up not to be. But so yes, I understand like these words.
That's from the lack of blood and oxygen to the brain. So
Okay.
becoming more common right now, and they're not exactly sure why. A lot of pregnancies, it happens with people that already have underlying health conditions, like say like a heart defect, kidneys, livers, like usually they can detect that early. Our case, she was supposed to be normal. She was healthy. So during labor, she lost the oxygen and blood flow.
Heart rate.
And so then she lost it. And basically when my uterus erupted, it drained everything from her first.
Yeah.
So
wow. Look at her. She's so darling.
Yes, this was her biggest issue, and why we were, the last probably 2 weeks of being in the NICU was feeding. So she couldn't get the suck, swallow, gag. Those are the 3 things that they look for feeding and everything like that. So that was her biggest issue. We did end up bringing her home on the NG tube. So she did have NG tube in her nose for probably another month or two.
Yeah.
We had a lot of support from our community. So my wife has a pretty big following in photography. And all of her clients really stepped up in our community, and they did a GoFundMe for us, and which allowed us to kind of live. If it wasn't for that, we would be living in a ditch somewhere. You know what I mean? Like literally.
Yeah.
It worked for so long. Like our main concern was her and her care, and we didn't care about us or anything that we needed to do. Like they just kept saying, we don't know how she's, and we think it's because you guys have honestly not have stood there. You've advocated for her. Like he went to every one of her like roundtable meetings and like found out what kind of medicine she needed, what she was taking, what they could do,
asked the questions, like figured out what the next step was. We pushed to be transferred, and not because that hospital wasn't doing good for us in the NICU, is because the other hospital that's available to us, that's where she's going to be seen for the rest of her life, and that's where she goes now.
And it's an actual children's hospital versus just a regular generic hospital.
Yeah, that is such a neat. I love seeing this because I think a lot of times we talk to moms and they kind of say, yeah, my husband or whatever, but this is really cool to see like how you and your husband have really like just dug in to care for her.
You can't do it without the team. It's been tough. I mean, we struggle every day still, it's not all peaches and cream over here. But we push, man. We're fighters. We both built businesses from the ground up. We know how to work through problems and issues, and we just work together. We just make it happen.
Lily's gonna come join us. She said, the other baby's getting all the fun.
What state are you guys in?
We're in Idaho.
Okay, I know. That's what I thought. When I was looking at your Facebook page. But like, so here we live in Maryland, but we see a hospital in Delaware. And Maryland's insurance rules are different than Delaware's insurance rules. So it's been a very, very big struggle with that, especially with us being self-employed.
And not working for so long.
Insurance is very hard to get. But I wish that medical things were the same across the board. As in Delaware, they offer like home nurses, so then we could have worked like with her home. Because her being on an NG tube, like nobody was going to accept her for daycare or care.
That's what Katie yesterday was talking about, that same thing. That, like, or it was Anna too. Like that, you just can't get into daycare. I've been a stay-at-home mom, and so we haven't done that particular thing. Like, and that's just a blessing. Like, just straight. But I do wish that there was something a little more, global, right? As far as like, this is what we cover, and this is,
or like Maryland is based off income. So once I returned back to work, it was
tough,
it's
expensive.
But the insurance is just so expensive you can't afford it, and that's the hard part.
But if we lived only 5 miles up the street in Delaware, 10 miles up the street, it would be her medical condition would be covered 100%.
Gosh,
yeah,
I feel like that's the trickiest part of. I know Anna in the group is going to work on different things for every state that people are available, that like what's available to help out. Have there been other, I can't even think of, like, are there other systems to help out? Idaho has all these different things that you can apply for.
Yeah. So Maryland's very, very, very tough. So
what's that one that you were talking about that you're looking into?
It's REM. It's RIM, but we have a social worker that works at the hospital that's been looking in for it, and she's like, as of right, like I was told that she could probably qualify for it, but the social worker was like, without her having certain diagnoses, she doesn't qualify yet.
Yeah. Well, and the diagnosis thing is a big deal, right? Like, you have to have a diagnosis. Millie,
HIE,
it's not like, it's a really
broad condition, because like cerebral palsy branches off of HIE, epilepsy branches off of HIE, and like our hardest thing with her right now, even though she looks so good and we work with her so much, she's doing so good, is that we're living in a world of unknowns. Nobody can tell us what the future is going to look like. They can't tell us what the brain damage is going to affect, and we have to wait till she starts trying to hit milestones of sitting up and then walking and then trying to talk till we know anything. Right now she's living and she's thriving. She's doing good. She's eating. She's maintaining as far as weight. She's not exceeding. But that's just our biggest struggle, is that the world of the unknowns. We have no clue what's going to come of it.
I think that's a major struggle for special needs parents in general.
Yeah.
Because even every diagnosis looks different.
Yeah.
And we've struggled a lot. We have a different situation as far as her medical coverage because she was adopted from the state.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we've been really blessed that way, where but
we did foster and adoption classes before we did IVF, and then we went out. So
we fostered for a few years, and it's the best and hardest thing we ever did, but it gave us the best thing ever. So we can't be mad about it. So we've been covered that way, but as far as diagnosis, every person since she was little has told me that it's genetic.
Yeah.
But we've done every genetic test and it's not showing up.
Oh.
So we actually don't have a diagnosis other than global delays. And obviously there's a diagnosis, right? Like, she's still 100% G-tube fed. So I think that's a real struggle, as far as, even if we had a diagnosis, it'd be like, okay, maybe we could look forward to that. And kind of like you're saying, like, you have a global diagnosis. Like it falls under this umbrella and it could look like this, or this. And that's a hard thing every day to kind of look
Yeah.
towards and try to figure out. I think it's just another wrinkle in the special needs parents like life. Yeah. It's just we don't even know. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what we need to be prepared for. And so
everyone's like, she looks so good, and we're like, you don't know what to say. You're like,
yeah. I mean, we did an event. We were a vendor. The Dad's Little Warriors was doing a vending event. At a event for cancer research for kids. This guy, really big provider and supporter, raises a lot of money for everything. I talked to one of the dads that was there, and it seemed kind of shocking that my table was there, because it's not a thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't really. There's little groups and stuff like that out there, obviously on social media and everything, but I don't know if anybody's really made like a big platform out of it. But I was talking to one of the dads. Unfortunately, his daughter actually passed away with cancer. And it was very rapid, like happened very fast.
April to August.
And he was like, I used to hate it so bad when everybody would say she's doing so good. When she was like, seemed like she was going to beat it. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. And that's
she looked so good.
So that's one thing me and my wife kind of struggle with, is when, sometimes when people don't understand these kind of situations, when they say that Lucy, is doing so good and everything like that, it's like, she's doing good today. Like you never know what the next minute, the next day, it changes like a light switch, and I'm like, wow, that hit me when the guy said that. And I'm like, I feel it, man. I feel exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that with all of the, I can totally like understand. With everything with her, she looked good, really good one day, and the next day we were in the PICU for a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You just don't know what.
You're just on your toes all the time, 24 hours.
It's a hard place. That's exhausting.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, for two things: for the foster.
Yeah.
Stuff.
We know how hard that can be.
Yeah. And they made it so hard for us when we just wanted to give a kid a better life. They made it so hard for us to do foster and adoption that we ended up doing IVF with our other daughter. Which, like not a bad thing, but it's kind of bad that we were trying to give a kid a better life. And, it just wasn't working. They made it so difficult to do that we decided to go the IVF route. And then two, the stay-at-home mom thing. I've always, even before this, I've always had respect for stay-at-home moms, and I said I never wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. That is not my thing. I'm a blue-collar worker. That's what I do. But man, this stuff's tough. It's definitely not for the weak. So hats off to you.
I've been doing it for 22 years, with my son and my other kids. But I think that, well, first of all, so tell us what you've done, because I'm looking at all your merchandise back there, and I want to hear about all of it. And I love the dad stuff, and I want to hit that a little bit more.
Okay, so it all really started. Just fall asleep.
She just fall asleep.
She felt kind of heavy. So it started actually when we were in the NICU, in the first part of after she was born, probably like 2 weeks in. I was really struggling. Like I was in a really dark place, and I had no support. We tried to get the hospital to get me support, and it was like they wanted to do outpatient, so they either wanted me to leave or worried about insurance, then
or money,
then making sure that I wasn't losing my mind. Those four walls will hurt you, man. Mentally, physically, we didn't leave. We stayed there. I slept. When Sam was in postpartum, I would go tuck her in at nighttime, and I would go back down to Lucy's bed, and I would sleep on that pull-out couch every single night. And I'd get up at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go up and I'd check on my wife, make sure she was good, get her ready, be there for the cares for her. And then we would go back down to Lucy, and we would stay all day. When we were in there, I told her, I said, after we leave here, I want to do something for dads. I want to make a difference. So it all really started there. And of course, transferring to another hospital, still in there for a while. We get home, And it was probably only a couple weeks, and I'm like, actually a month, because I had to get my shop cleared out, shut my shop down, got my shop cleared out, and I'm home and I'm helping take care of Lucy and our other daughter and, my wife. And we were struggling, and just mentally, financially. And I'm like, it's time. Like, I just got to do it, and I went ahead and I started out with hats. So, these are the hats that I do. So I do leather patches that I get a company to engrave for me, and I had our logos made up and everything. So I started out with them, and I've never pressed a hat before, but I love hats. I'm a hat guy.
Yeah.
So I got hooked up with a company. They're actually out in, I believe, Oklahoma. They burn the patches and stuff for me because we don't have the money to buy our own laser engraver and stuff like that. So they burn them. I order them, quantities at a time, and they ship them to me. And I buy our blank hats and everything from a supplier. And I started running with it, man, and kind of took off. I mean, there's not big margins, but that wasn't my deal. I'm not worried about the money. Obviously, everybody needs money to survive. So it, was something that turned in. We're about like 2 months in, from like when we launched the website, probably when I opened Facebook, and started the dad's page. So yeah, we started out with hats. I ran with them. We've done really well with them. I try to come up. We have a designer that designs all the different designs for us that you can see on the websites. I try to come up with stuff to kind of keep it fresh. I'm a little grungy sometimes, like dads are, so I like to be kind of funny. It's not for everybody, but I like different options and stuff.
What's the name? What's the name of the company?
So it's called Dads of Little Warriors.
Dads of Little Warriors.
Yep. So, we started that. I didn't really have too much of a hard time coming up with names. I did want to do something kind of broad at first, but then I'm like, you know what, man, I need to go for the dads, and then we can go off of that. That's something that we were going to do family, we were going to do parents, we were going to do, something about children and stuff like that. But I'm like, you know what, let's just shoot for the dads and kind of go there. So did that, got that running on a website. One cool thing we really did on a website that's been probably our top seller, I think I was looking the other night, is I do this thing where you can go online on our website and buy a hat for a dad. So you don't physically get the hat, you buy the hat. I pick, what design I want to put on the hat, and I give it to a dad that I feel like needs to pick me up, that just needs that. It's the little things. So with us being at the hospital all the time, I take hats up to the hospital that are purchased off of that.
We give some to nurses.
Yep, give some to nurses that know if dad's going through something and everything. I get on social media, man. I found so many dads out there, and honestly, I mainly have to reach out to the moms because we're dads. We don't talk about that stuff. We don't post about that stuff. I reach out to moms, get connected with them, and then I'm able to, ship them a hat. My favorite thing is I usually write a handwritten letter. I kind of scroll through, do a little bit of research, see what's going on or what they tell me. And I just write something, from my head and my heart, that hopefully will make a difference, feel like they should, that they're providing, they're going through it. It'll get past. So yeah, it really all started out with the hats, and then we started bringing in the t-shirts and stuff, and everything's pretty much made to order.
That's amazing. I like, good job. I don't know. I mean, that's like, it means nothing coming from me, but I'm totally impressed.
Anybody and everybody.
I think that I'm looking, like, trying to pick out what we're buying for my husband for Christmas. So I mean, you're behind you, but I think that you're exactly right. One of our struggles when Millie was in the NICU for so long, we were during COVID, and they would only let one parent come per day.
Yeah.
And so my husband never went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't, right? Like, so it was just me.
Yeah.
And he probably loves this little girl more than anybody, right? And so it was when she finally came home and he got to I think he went one day out of the 2.5 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's tough, man.
And that's hard because you have to choose. Like me, like if it could be me or him, I would be like, I want to be in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it had to be me, right? I had more time.
And when we got to hold her for the first time, I was like, selfishly, I want to hold her for the first time. I was like, but do you want to hold her first?
Like, nah, babe, it's all you.
He was like, hold her first. I was like, oh.
It's hard. It's a hard position. And I think everything you're saying just totally, I can hear it. Like not only do we have this situation and you've watched your wife go through something really scary.
Yeah.
You know, I think we had some different traumatic experiences with childbirth and delivery. And I remember my husband after we lost our first daughter. And I remember like clearly that there's a before that loss and an after my husband. Like
Yeah.
he has all he will have always been different since then. Like, you know, and so I think that's a lot to shoulder. You're looking at the woman you love.
Yeah.
And, you know, who's the most important person to you and how traumatic that is for you. And then also, you know, trying to provide.
Yeah.
That's a scary, it's just, you know, and moms, we talk a lot to the moms because we have a whole different array of things.
Out. Like,
And that's the thing, like with dads, like you don't have to necessarily tell me your situation. If you're not comfortable with it, you don't like talking about it, you know, you don't have to. But they know that I'm here. You know what I mean? I think the situations I've been in, like nothing like we just went through, but in life, just knowing that you literally have somebody that you talk to. You know, I've in reference, I've got a buddy that, you know, was in the military and man, he's been through. And, you know, I have a lot of respect for that. And it's actually, and kind of went through an episode with flashing lights at the and everything. And he had to roll out, you know, and go back to the hotel. And it was actually on my birthday. And we got back and I'm like, you know, what's up, man? You good? You know, and I'm talking to him and he's like, you know, I don't know. And he was sitting down in the like courtyard at the hotel. And I just went down there and I told him, I was like, hey, man, like, you don't have to talk. If you want to talk, let's talk. If not, and I put my hand on his shoulder and I'm like, dude, I'm here. You know what I mean? Like, we can sit here in silence. We can sit here and talk. You can tell me whatever you have to tell me. But you don't have to. And we sat there and just, you know, let him do what he had to do.
Yeah.
So we don't explain and talk and all that stuff. It's just literally knowing you have somebody, whether you know, here in Maryland or Louisiana or Texas or, you know, Idaho or wherever, like you got somebody, you know.
Well, and I think even just with the hat, like I love the idea of dads of little warriors. And anyways, I'm so impressed. I'm impressed with what you guys have done in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I busted, man.
You did.
But I did stuff, I get.
yeah.
And what a blessing to everyone around you and to your little baby. She is super darling. Do you have any? So you got off the NG tube, and she's eating.
So that's another struggle. She's not getting the proper weight they want her to. They did want her to get a G tube. I declined. Again, advocating for her. I wanted her to give that fighting chance to actually be able to learn how to suck and swallow and gag. And I worked with her every every minute because we did not leave her. So every feeding we worked with her and
Push them to give us a little bit more time.
Yeah,
you know,
push them because they wanted to do like a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes of just feeding. I'm like, she's not going to learn that way. Like, we got to keep trying and trying. And I'm glad I stuck to my guns. I'm glad that I pushed for it because, like we said, like within 2 months of being home, she was eating a full bottle on her and she was pulling it out.
Yeah, she
like,
ripped out so many.
She was like, I'm done. Like, and if you would put the tube back in, she was like, I'm not taking that bottle.
Yep.
Like, so it was nice to like, yeah. And I was like, doing it. Like, she's doing it on her own. She might take a little bit of time when she's burning more calories than what they would like. But she's eating.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I do photography for all types of kids, and all different areas, like kids that are on the spectrum. I do kids with NG tubes. I do kids with G tubes. And a lot of the things that I've learned is that a lot of moms say they only listen to what the doctor said. they never pushed for more or tried more because they were like, I just need to do what the doctor says, and that's what the doctor says, And I was like, I want her to work for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want her to.
She needs to know how to be hungry or she's not
Yeah.
going. Yeah, we got.
I think that's really, really important. It's one of the things. So when I first visited Millie in the hospital, the prognosis, every nurse was like, she'll probably just be a vegetable.
Yeah.
Like,
That was her. Yep. That was
probably just going to lay there. She was fully intubated, and she, when I got there, it was the day after her G-tube surgery. So she had already had surgery. She wasn't swallowing her own secretions. So she has a really, really hard time swallowing. Still,
Yeah.
she doesn't have the gag reflex. So all the things you're talking about, like we don't do that.
How
But
old
they,
then?
I got there and she was a month and a half.
okay. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
I know you want to talk to me. You want to tell your story. And so they had, but there was no her birth. I know her birth mother just left after delivery, so she had been alone for
Yeah.
that month and a half, and it was probably the worst thing ever for me. Like I just was so devastated that happened, and so I was like you, I just stayed there. Like
Yeah.
that was it.
I don't want to. I said if she's gonna be, I don't want her to be alone. I don't want her to die alone.
Yeah.
Because they kept trying to get us to leave, and I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
I know they kept telling me you can't fall asleep. If you fall asleep, then you can't be in here. And I'm like, then wake me up.
Yeah.
Then poke me.
Kick me, wake me, do what you got to do. I don't
It
care.
doesn't matter. I'm gonna be here.
Yep. Well, I got to step out for just a minute. I got to go let our horses out real fast. But Sam,
Yeah, it was so nice to meet you.
you too. If you're still on when I get back, I'll catch up with you then.
Okay.
oh.
So I think what was the other question? So you worked really hard to get that NG tube, and but you're still not sure whether you're gonna end up needing some like
Yeah. Yesterday, and she's not gaining the appropriate weight that they want her to gain. And so I was like, okay, so we're talking about putting the NG tube back in, not putting it back in, because I kind of made that decision on my own, which, good and a bad. Like the doctor agreed. He was like, her best. More than us. Like if she's taking the bottle, that's great. And I'm like, as soon as you put that tube back in, she's like, no, I'm not doing it. They only give you 5 a month also in our state. And she was, yeah. So she was ripping them out so much that I was having to buy them or like find them. And then like they wouldn't give me a script. And I was like, this is just a lot. Like, it's just a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
Tie her down or like, wrap her. And I'm like, but you guys want her to move and gain muscle, but you don't want her to move. It was like so hard to do.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to talk sometimes with doctors because they really don't know what they're talking. Like,
yeah,
they do, but they don't, right? So it's so hard because you're at the same time you're looking at these doctors like, you've saved my child's life. I know you saved it. I know that everything we do has made her alive. And at the same time, it's like, but you don't get it.
Yeah.
So we got one button, G2.
Yeah.
And she rips them out all the time.
All the time.
She would, you do, I know you do. And we got to the same place like you. Like I was having to find them and buy them and do all this stuff. And because she'll rip them out and break them, and so that I can't put them back in. And my doctor 2 months ago was like, we finally have gotten her approved for 1 a month.
Yeah.
Which changed our lives.
Yeah, I bet. And that's what I told the doctor yesterday. I was like, so we don't have any tubes left. So I filled out the script to get them sent to me, but because she's not on the NG tube, they haven't sent them to us. So I was like, so if you want her to go back on it, you're going to have to send me a tube because I don't have it. And I was trying to like get like a stockpile of them. So I kept filling out the script and like, they were like, no, you're not putting it in her. So we're not going to send them to you. And I was like, oh, fine. But they said like her muscle tone is getting better. She's just not the appropriate weight. So they're gonna monitor her again next month, and then if she was already 5 months, which is only 5 days away, they said she'd be the appropriate weight and height, but because she's not 5 months yet, she's not.
Okay, so she's close.
Yes, a double-headed sword. You're just like, what is best, what is not best.
So are you guys doing neurology? Are you followed by neurology then?
Yeah, so we had neurology the first 5 days, and then and we have a neurology follow-up at 6 months. So we go back into.
And did she get an MRI when she was in the hospital?
She did. So she had an EEG, yeah, EEG, day 1, 2, and 3, which showed no brain activity, and a seizure. And then day 4, she had a MRI done, which showed severe brain damage, which is how we determined that she did have the HIE, and it's severe. They basically gave us the quality of life talk, like what is best for you, your husband, and your other child. Like, that was really hard.
Yeah. How did you respond to that? Because I think that I've now had a couple of moms talk about that.
So, we're realists, so like I don't mind that they told us that. Like when they came back with her EEG results, they were like, there's basically nothing we can do. There's just she's not showing any activity. I was really upset at first, and I was like, why us? Why me? Why did nobody listen to me? Why did nobody do anything sooner? You know what I mean? Because this could have been avoided.
It seems like it's preventable if they had just taken.
Yeah. And when her MRI results came back, I looked at my husband and I was like, I'm always used to being on the other side, like capturing memories for parents that like are doing the end of life, not making these decisions. My dad died 8 years ago, and he was on life support, and I had to make that decision. And I told him, I'm not making for that. Like I want to give her a chance, and if they're giving us these results here, I want to move. I want to move to a different hospital. If she's gonna die here, she's gonna die somewhere else. You know what I mean? And I told him, I always told the doctors, like, this is her fight. Like, this is her fight. And if she wants to be here, she'll be here. And if she doesn't, she won't be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't want to make that decision for her. So we're basically going over the, like when they give us the quality of life talk. Yeah. And like, she's like, a lot of moms don't know how to answer that. And I told him, I looked at my husband, I was like, we're not giving up on her. And we stuck to that. We didn't give up on her. On day 5, when she was warming, she woke up
at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
I'm telling you, we called her the limp noodle and a meatball because she was so big. Limp noodles. Anytime you moved her, she just went like this. And we didn't expect that. And I said, like, could you imagine if we would have taken her off life support yesterday when they said, not suggested it, but gave us the quality of life talk? Like, because they would take her off the vent and she wouldn't breathe on her own. So, like, she would have never survived. Right. And imagine if we would have done that. Like,
well, and it was weird, too, because you were still admitted at that point. And typically by that time, I had Sam up in her room up in postpartum. And for some reason, we were down there late that night. And you didn't go. We
were just talking and like carrying on and like laughing.
Play music and stuff for her and everything.
And that's while she's warming up.
Yeah. Yeah. And
table. I'm gonna look that up. I've never heard of that. I think that's so wild.
And then the doctor, like not the doctor, the nurse that was working on her was like, Lucy, what are you doing? Lucy, she was moving her arms like crazy. Mind you, like she's never done that. Yeah. And she was like freaking out, grabbing her PICC line, grabbing her tube, and she's like, help, like I don't like, she's like, don't touch that, don't do that, don't, like, to her. And we're like, what can we do? And we're like, we didn't even get it on video because we were so shocked. Like, because anytime she would do something, we would try to record it. And we just like was all hands in, like, what can we do to help you? Like, what do you want us to hold? What do you want us to do? And it was just my advice for everyone is always like their fight is their fight. And, I get everybody's different. Like my dad told me many a times, I don't want to be on life support. Don't make me be on life support. When they told me that my dad's quality of life would that he would be a vegetable, his lung exploded. That I knew that he wouldn't want to be a wheelchair bound. I knew that he wouldn't want to live in the hospital for the rest of his life. And that was a really big decision, but you know what I mean? Like you knew what that person's wishes were. I knew who I was as a person, and I knew that I could give her the best fighting chance that I could. I always tell my husband, when we're struggling, like we'll make it work. If we don't have the money this month, like we'll make it work. Like if something to happen, like we'll work harder, we'll work extra, we'll do this, like we'll sell things. Like it is what it is. Like, you can sell a TV off the wall, somebody will buy it. Like when you get the money, you can buy a new one. Like it's not that big of a deal. So that was always my thing. Like her fight is her fight, and I'm glad I didn't give up on her. And I even told my husband, like, if you can't do this, like that's fine. Like, guys are different than us. Like if you don't think this is for you, I see a lot of parents in my career that can't deal with a kid with medical needs, or, they can't do things when there's a change. And, I would support him in any decision that he wanted to do, but this is what I wanted. And you were in for it. He knows me.
I am I'm trying to like picture that moment where you guys have gone from she has no brain activity to she's like fully there. Like that had,
Yeah, and we were so numb. Like people are like, how are you up walking? Because I had a C-section. I'm like, I don't feel anything, because all I feel right now is that I want my daughter like to wake up. I want my daughter here. I want, you're both so numb, you don't know what to do.
I think it's like such an amazing thing. And people would ask me like, how do you do it? Or they'd say, oh, you're so amazing, right? Or how do you do like all of those kids? Or how do you do all these things? It's like, I don't know. That's not really the right question.
Do it, man. Get it all the time too.
Like, what is the other option, right?
There's not.
There's not two. It's not like, oh, I have a choice to not do my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you wake up and that's your life. That's what you're doing that day, right?
Yeah,
But
man.
talk about, I mean, that had just been the most amazing experience. We have like, I'm kind of sad for people who don't get to experience the pure miracles.
Yeah. And that's hard to talk to, like, you don't know some of the terms and stuff. And that's us too. Like, you don't want to upset anybody. You don't want to offend anyone. Like,
Or
you
get
don't
judged.
get judged. Like, you're like, for somebody that didn't have a kid that, made it or doesn't have the same outcome. We're in an HIE group, and there's a lot of children in there that have severe HIE that are doing the things that Lucy does. And like, why us, or why not them?
Because they categorize HIE in different categories. So it's mild, moderate, and severe.
Yeah.
And there's kids out there in the group that are mild that don't do anything
that she does.
And she's severe, and she is just like, sometimes I feel like her movements are a little abrupt and too much, and I've voiced that many a times at different appointments because we're there all the time.
And they just say, we don't know.
Yeah, it's waiting. So, that's the biggest answer the other day. You will never get even a 50% opinion from a doctor when it comes to anything medical like that.
No, they really have no outlook. I think, we were living in Nevada when Millie was born, and we went to see a neurologist, and this is he had like a weekend house in Malibu or something. So we had to go see him in Malibu. I was like, okay. But so we ended up going over there to see him, but he is the only person that has ever told me, and he looked at her and she was little. She was probably just out of the hospital. And he looked at her and he's like, okay. And I couldn't tell any difference in her than any other baby. Like other than the oxygen and feeding, but like as far as her movement and stuff. And he looked at her and he's like, she has high tone in her legs, low tone in her trunk and arms. And he like said all of these things. And it's the first doctor and only doctor that's ever been like, this is
Yeah.
what it's going to be like. And she's 4 years old and she still has high tone in her legs and low tone, you know. So I think you get like a doctor randomly who really can see it.
And he was wrong, but we still love him.
Yeah.
He's the one that read us the MRI results and
the EEG
and the EEG. And he's like, yeah, there's nothing, you know, like she's got brain damage on both sides. I don't feel like she's really going to do anything, you know, and you guys should kind of prepare for the worst. And then that night after we heard that, well, early the next morning, that's when she took off, man. And she just hasn't stopped since.
She heard it and she's like, no, I'm not going down like that.
Exactly.
We always want to go like back and see him. Like, I want to.
And not because we're mad or he gave us false information. He was actually the only straight shooter that we had there.
And he called her by her name.
Yeah. Instead of just a baby or, you know, just starting the conversation. Just talk about Lucy. And I'm like, hold on a second.
He's like, he said her whole name, Lucy Lane. And we were like, what did you just say? He's like, I said her name. And I was like,
looked at us all weird. I'm like, that's the first time I've heard her name come out of somebody else's mouth besides ours.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I think it's so amazing. I was just talking to someone about that the other day, that really there's just little things that certain doctors and nurses do that make you feel totally different.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, it's just probably personality too. Like some people are just more personable, right? But it sure can make a difference in your whole day, especially when you see so many of them all the time.
We go to, and we're just like, here we go, you know, another month, you know, it went by a month too quick, and we're back in this one, and then there's others we go to, like,
hey, how are you?
You know, and it's the same.
There's some. Yeah, I love when I walk in and like, you just know what appointment you want to go to, right? Like that's going to be the doctor. It's going to make my day. It's going to feel, even if, you know,
exactly.
We have a doctor like that who he usually is the one who gives me kind of the worst news, but I still like him.
That's us. Like we're like, we like those ones. And then you have the ones that are just like, here we go again.
Yeah.
And the staff and everything else. Well, so what other things, like, we're probably going to wrap up. I just had my kids walk in. So, what other things, are there certain things that you want to, sorry, she's really got herself worked up about something. Oh, what she's so worked up about? What are you worked up about? Do you want to say something? Like the audience it's getting bigger, but what things would you want to tell them that are just starting out? Because you guys are just at the very beginning and you're kind of both still in, like, I'm amazed at how you're doing when I'm looking at you, because I'm remembering what I looked like at like this phase, and I wasn't starting a business.
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I look like death today. Like,
no, you look great. You look great. I'm just amazed at like, and how like you've started a business and all the things. Like, what would be just what you wanted to say to somebody who's kind of right behind you?
So I would say like our biggest thing is like, we started this because there's not much support. If you don't have family support, which some people don't, people don't get, you know, find people that will help you and care for you.
Just be there.
Be there for you, even if it's just like somebody to yell at once in a while. You know, like you got to find those friends that are there for you. We've noticed that like there's not a lot of family support, and your biggest supporters, and then it's not, and you have people stepping up and reaching out to you every day that don't even know you, or people that like know of you that, you know, offer you a hand or offer you to come watch your kids. Don't think that there's anything wrong with you. Like, you have that grieving process. You're going to be mad. You're going to be sad. You're going to be happy. And you got to find those people that support that. So we have neighbors that were like, you know, if you came to my house at 1 o'clock in the morning and told me to go F off and, you know, wanted to scream at me.
All right. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Have a great day. Like, I would have let at me because you guys have been through it. Then you have those people that you have done that to by accident, like that no longer support you, that don't want to be in your family. And that's okay too, because everyone has different beliefs and views and stuff like that. So I would say like
you're going to lose people.
You're going to lose people. You're going to find out who the real people are.
Don't hold on to things that you can't control. You know, unfortunately, you're going to lose people in your life that don't understand what you've been through
or what you're going through.
Yeah. But you're going to gain more than you lose.
Yeah. And that's a big thing for us. And like advocating was another big one. And just,
keep pushing.
Talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of people that said, like, how are you guys being so positive, especially when we were in the hospital?
Oh, man.
Playing music, like, we'd be laughing, and it's like, I want the best outcome for her. I like play the music, talk to them, do the things that make you happy. And that was our thing. Like, we always tried to be positive in front of her, and we did cry for her and stuff. Like, we did that in private together.
We're at each other.
Yeah, we're at each other. And that's the thing. Like, everyone's story is different. Everyone's story starts differently. Everyone has a different outcome. Like, I do find myself sometimes like kind of not comparing, but kind of comparing to other people in HIE groups. And like, you can't do that. Like, make your own kid's story, make your own kid's outcome.
So that's just because we have to. So that's what
this shirt is
for.
So every story is different, but it all starts here because like that's where they started. They started at that hospital with that band on.
Whether it went perfectly smooth, or
an adoption, like it all started here, and everyone has a story, and all the stories are different, and that's just my biggest thing. Like, we don't try to compare. Don't try to compare yourself. Like, push your kid to do what you think they could. That's don't be the statistic. Like they said, like divorce is very high when you have a kid with medical needs, and like I get it. Like we've fought a couple times, and and it's like, are we just better off going separate ways? And you're like, no, like we got this. Like if you can communicate and talk and like talk it out, like even if it's in private and not in front of your kids, or you have to do it. Like we get it,
and we're still learning.
And we're still
learning how to.
So it's like we don't know, but I do know. Like I never pictured myself in this position. Like I said, I've always photographed it and captured it for people. I photographed many of kids, that have died or are dying like from cancer or other things. And I never pictured myself on this side. And the things I have learned over the years because of that and being supportive for those families, I've learned how to really cope with it. So, yeah.
Well, I can't even add anything. That was perfect. I think you guys are, no, I mean, that's exactly, you just kind of encapsulated everything I think about this. Like it's exactly the right way to deal with it. Like, things are hard, but it doesn't have to be miserable.
Yeah.
Right. And you make the choice to be miserable. And whatever happens,
you just got to do things for you. Like, you can't let other people's choices or words or opinions
it's okay to have a bad day. You're gonna have
and it's okay. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think the comparison thing with the special needs, that's what we're trying to do with this group, is like, let's not do that. Let's not do any sort of comparison. None of us are on the same journey. That's why the doctors can't tell you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the reason they can't, and they know a lot of things, but the reason they can't is every single person is different. Every little miracle that happens to you can be something devastating for someone else.
Yeah.
And so the only thing we can do is be there for each other. And that's really like my vision of the whole thing. Every single time I talk to someone, I'm like, you guys are just amazing. You're doing such a good job. And I remember being at 4 months. I remember when she was there and looking at it, like when you guys were saying, just when you're saying like, we don't know what it looks like, I think, enjoy the ride, buckle in.
We're going for a bumpy ride.
But you have the right outlook, because I think the only thing you can do when you don't have any idea what's going to happen, the only thing you can do is, decide what you've already decided. We're going to do it,
Yep.
whatever it is, and we're going to push as hard as we can.
Yep.
Against and with the medical community. I think you have to do both. I think you have to push against them, and I think you have to go with them.
Yeah.
And you really have to pay attention to what they're saying, and I think you just have it exactly right. And that's why I love, yesterday I talked to someone with a 6-year-old, and today we're talking to a 4-month. This is my favorite. Like, I love seeing all the stages of people, in this, because the common link has been that they're just doers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
So anyway, I love it. I think we should put a link to your store up in our mom's group.
We've been
Yeah.
Gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'm gonna look for my husband and maybe send some the thing that you're doing with the other dads, like that I can send some hats to dads at this. I think that is so incredible.
Yeah, it's been a big hit. It kind of came from a guy who was very early on before I even thought of that. And he was like, "Hey, my kid doesn't have anything wrong with them, but I would love to give you money to be able to give a hat to a dad that, that's going through something." And I'm like, "Look, man, this isn't for just medical. This is for all dads. This is for anything. Dads, whether we admit it or not, we struggle every day with something, whether it's too much or not enough, of anything." And, so then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what, man, I'm just going to put this on the website and run with it and see what happens. And it just took off, and the next thing I know, I'm like, man, I'm searching for dads, and it's not with social media these. And then we get a lot of local, like today, we're actually going, probably when we get off of here, there's a blood drive, which we did one also for Lucy, very fresh out of coming out of, actually we had it set up through one of Sam's friends.
Yeah.
She set up this whole blood drive and everything like that to donate blood since she lost it and Lucy lost it and all that stuff. There's a blood drive locally that we know, the people that are doing the blood drive, and I'm going to drop off a couple t-shirts and a hat too. That's one of the donate hats. And I just boxed up those 2 boxes back there are donate hats. One's going to Florida, and then one's locally. They're just in Delaware. So it's awesome, man, and it's really cool.
Well, and let us know if you ever have so many that you need to distribute at other places. We got moms all over the place. You could send them out and we'll get them to doctors, but our hospitals. But I am just, anyway, so good job. And it's amazing. And you guys are in for a ride, but man, she's darling.
Yeah.
Darling. And I'm probably going to keep your story of hearing that she had no brain function to then her waking up in my heart. Like that is like, what a moment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, so thank you so much. And we'll, I don't even know what to say other than thank you for sharing. And I'm sure that your story will touch many people.
Thank you for reaching out. Like I said, sorry. I was like, this lady's going to think I'm like a fraud or something. Life is just crazy over here. I'm back to work and running to doctor's appointments, and
there is not a person on here that I would think anything if they just ghosted me for weeks. I know exactly. I know what doctor's appointments look like. We had 15 in 1 week, and I was she's getting ready for surgery, and I was like, how am I going to do everything? Thank goodness I have an older child. These older kids, I don't have much family that helps, but my kids are all just angels, every single one of them.
Yep.
So anyway, it was so, so, so great to meet you. And if you ever have anything that you need to get on here and, tell about a blood drive, I don't know, whatever, let me know.
Okay.
We'll put you back on here.
Let's know if we can do anything.
Yeah, so great to meet you.
You too.
You too.
All right, bye.